I was at a friend's house the other day, and he was excited to show me his new car. He led me out to the driveway, beaming, and there it was, a perfectly nice mid-size SUV. In a very respectable shade of metallic gray, it looked almost identical to his neighbor's car, and to the one across the street. As we were admiring its sensible design, another friend pulled up in her new car. It was a completely different brand and model, but it was painted the exact same shade of gray. For a second, it felt like a glitch in reality. Three different people, three different cars, one identical non-committal color. My friend just laughed and said, "I guess gray is just the best for resale value." Nobody seemed to think it was strange, but that moment stuck with me. That quiet acceptance of sameness for the sake of efficiency. It's the same feeling you get when you realize the last 5 blockbuster movies you watched were all sequels, or when you notice that every song on a popular playlist seems to blend into one long algorithm-friendly track. We've become so focused on the safe bet, the profitable formula, the efficient choice, that we've started to design the uniqueness right out of our world. We've built ourselves a comfortable, sensible, grayscale trap. That moment, for me, it really crystallized this idea of an industrialized sameness trap. And it's not just about cars, or like individual objects. This isn't just some quirky observation. It feels like a really profound, pervasive trend that, well, you can observe across entire industries. Just look at Hollywood, for example. Between 2016 and 2023, only 5 of the top 10 grossing movies were original titles.
Only 5?
Wow. Think about that. 65 were either sequels or derived from existing intellectual property.
Yeah.
65 out of 70.
That's a level-football, right?
It's almost unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
It shows this deep reliance on what's already known, what feels like a safe bet.
A profitable formula, yeah.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop at film either. In music, I read about researchers who analyzed like hundreds of thousands of recordings from 1955 all the way to 2010. And they found what they termed consistent homogenization of the timbral palette.
Okay, so in plain English.
Basically, songs are increasingly sounding more alike. They're losing their distinct sonic fingerprints, even everyday stuff, household objects, they're following suit. Apparently, gray is now the most popular color for everything from blenders to smart speakers.
Gray blenders, right? It's this relentless pursuit of efficiency. Lowering costs, streamlining production, improving profitability. And it seems like it's inadvertently just draining the uniqueness, the distinctiveness, and maybe even the beauty from our world. It feels like we're trading vibrant originality for, comfortable predictability.
What's truly fascinating there, and maybe a little alarming when you think about the broader implications, is how this relentless drive for efficiency, which is completely logical from a business standpoint, right?
Sure, makes sense.
It so consistently leads to this profound lack of distinctiveness. You see it everywhere, like you said. These perceived safe bets just lead to a sea of identical products, identical experiences.
Yeah.
And it begs a critical question. Can we genuinely escape this industrialized sameness without sacrificing the very efficiency that, let's face it, drives so much of our modern economy?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. It's a compelling challenge. But when we look at history, and maybe surprisingly, when we look at the natural world, we find some really compelling evidence that beauty, originality, and efficiency can actually coexist.
Oh, interesting.
In fact, they often thrive together. So today, we're going to explore 3 key guidelines, let's call them pathways, that offer some intriguing ways out of this grayscale trap.
Okay, let's unpack this first guideline then. The idea that simplicity can actually act as this powerful bridge, connecting efficiency, beauty, and originality in ways you might not expect. It sounds almost too easy, right? Like doing less somehow gets you more.
It does seem counterintuitive at first glance.
But the impact of simplicity, especially when you talk about design and user experience, it can be really profound.
Yeah.
I actually remember quite vividly a personal experience that kind of drove this point home for me. My old laptop. Oh man, it was a battlefield of icons, just a digital scream, Every startup chimed in with a pop-up. Every program seemed to have a dozen toolbars I never, ever used. Total clutter. It felt less like a tool and more like this needy, demanding thing that just thrived on my confusion. And I bought it because the specs were impressive, right? A long list of features that promised all this power.
The featureless trap.
Exactly. Yeah. But that power was just buried under layers and layers of complexity. I was just tired, not just tired of the machine, but tired of that feeling that technology was supposed to be this constant struggle.
Right.
Then I switched. The new device was, it was just a simple, quiet slab of glass and aluminum, no instructions needed, just a single glowing icon when you opened it. Setting it up took maybe 2 minutes. My files just sort of floated into place. The interface didn't shout at me, it just waited.
Oh, peace.
For the first time in years, the screen actually felt like a clean desk, not some cluttered garage. And I realized then I hadn't bought a less powerful machine. I'd bought a more focused one. It wasn't about escaping features. It was about escaping the noise. It gave me back my attention, which is, the one thing no spec sheet ever lists.
That's a perfect illustration, really, of how these minimalist design principles and what we call intuitive user experience, or UX, which is basically the overall feeling and ease you have when interacting with a product, how they directly combat the kind of market saturation and, frankly, consumer fatigue you're describing.
Right.
A big part of the problem often stems from something called choice overload or decision fatigue. Have you heard of this?
I think so, yeah. It's when you have too many options, right?
Exactly. It's where having an overwhelming number of options actually diminishes your ability to make rational decisions. Sometimes it leads to making no decision at all. Think about endlessly scrolling through Netflix.
Oh, definitely done that.
Trying to pick something to watch, and do you just give up entirely? That's choice overload in action.
Guilty as charged.
Well, there's a classic study actually involving jam sales that perfectly encapsulates this. They found customers were 27% more likely to actually buy jam when they were presented with only 6 flavors versus a display with 24 flavors.
27% more likely with fewer options.
Yes. But here's the fascinating part. Those same customers initially found the larger selection, the 24 choices, 20% more attractive.
So they liked the idea of more choice, but didn't act on it.
Precisely. It's a paradox, right? And it highlights a really crucial insight for anyone designing a product or service. People say they want more choices, but what they truly desire is choice without the burden of having to make more decisions. They want the potential benefit without the cognitive load, the mental effort.
Okay, that's a really sharp distinction. So it's not about just stripping away options entirely, but making the choices that are there feel effortless. How do designers actually achieve that without just, making things simplistic or dumbing them down?
Exactly. It's a fine balance.
Okay.
The key really lies in creating what we call an intuitive user interface, or UI. That's the actual point of interaction between you and the device,
Right.
the buttons, the menus, the screens you physically see and touch.
Got it.
An intuitive UI means you can understand how a system behaves without needing a manual, without needing help. You can find what you're looking for and know how to interact almost automatically, almost instinctively. And this relies on several core principles that might sound basic, but they're incredibly powerful when it comes to escaping that sameness we talked about. First off, there's consistency. This applies to everything visual design, the fonts they use, the colors, the layout, how you navigate. When elements are consistent across an interface, or maybe even across different products from the same brand.
Like Apple stuff often feels similar.
Exactly like Apple. Users can then predict how future interactions will work. They build a mental model in their head, which makes the product feel familiar, predictable, and easy to use. It reduces friction and that anxiety you sometimes get when learning something totally new.
Okay, consistency. What else?
Second, simplicity. The UI needs to be straightforward, easy to understand. It should be designed to keep what we call cognitive load low.
Mental effort, basically.
Right. It's not about removing power or capability, but removing unnecessary complexity. It prevents that user anxiety about making mistakes or getting lost in layers of menus and options they'll probably never even use. Think about the contrast you described your old cluttered laptop versus the clean slate of your new one. That's simplicity in action.
Makes sense.
Third, and this is important, adhering to common standards. There's often no need to reinvent the wheel for basic interactions. Think about finding a file, using a search bar, or closing a pop-up window.
Yeah, you expect those to work a certain way.
You do. Users have learned these conventions elsewhere, and they expect them to work similarly. Deviating from those standards without a really, really good reason just creates friction. It forces users to relearn, which is the absolute opposite of intuitive design.
That made me think, right?
Essentially, yes. And finally, providing feedback. Users need to constantly know what they've done and what the system is doing. Is it loading? Did my click register? Was there an error?
Like a little spinning wheel or a confirmation message.
Exactly. Whether it's a loading animation, a confirmation message, or an error pop-up, clear feedback guides them through the interaction seamlessly. It reassures them that the system is responding. Without that clear feedback, people quickly become frustrated and might just abandon the product altogether. These aren't just, technical rules. They are fundamentally human-centered design principles that make digital experiences feel less like a struggle and more like an extension of your own intention.
So it's all about reducing that mental effort, making the technology almost disappear so you can just focus on what you're trying to do. But what about situations where a brand does have a massive array of features or content? Like Spotify, you mentioned music earlier. How do they offer that rich experience without completely overwhelming you?
That's where the really clever move in design comes in, something called anticipatory design.
Anticipatory. Okay.
Yeah. This isn't just about limiting choices. It's about providing the desired options and control while actually removing the decision-making burden itself. It's about being so attuned to your user, understanding their patterns and needs, that the experience almost feels magical, like the system knows what you want before you do.
Okay, that sounds potentially amazing, maybe a little creepy.
It can walk a fine line, absolutely, which is why transparency is key. But think about Spotify's daily mixes. You have literally a world of music at your fingertips, millions of songs. Instead of forcing you to sift through it all, Spotify curates these personalized, seemingly never-ending playlists based on your listening habits.
Yeah, I use those all the time.
Right. And they're refreshed daily with a mix of songs you love and new discoveries it thinks you'll like. Your primary decision is reduced to basically, when do I press play? It provides immense choice, but without the fatigue of making constant decisions. It creates a distinct, personalized listening experience just for you.
That's a great example.
Or consider the Google Nest Learning Thermostat. It doesn't bombard you with dozens of complex settings. It learns your household schedule, when you typically go to bed, when you wake up, when you leave the house, and it automatically adjusts the temperature for both comfort and energy conservation.
Yeah.
You get the precise control you want over your home's climate, but without constantly having to think about it or manually tweak the settings. It anticipates your needs and acts on them proactively.
So it's designing for convenience by predicting what I want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is empathetic design in action. It's like your favorite barista remembering the usual without you having to ask. Or your preferred online store recommending exactly the next product you didn't even know you needed yet. Amazon's product recommendations, the Wells Fargo ATM, remembering if you want a receipt or not, Hopper predicting flight prices and telling you when the best time to buy is. These services just get you right. They anticipate your needs based on past behavior. Now, it's crucial, as I said, for brands to be transparent about how they're using your data to make these suggestions and to always offer clear ways to opt out. But when done right, anticipatory design is about anticipating, not assuming. It means truly putting your users' goals above the company's own immediate goals. It turns complexity into convenience and generic options into personalized, valuable pathways.
That really draws a strong connection between that simplicity and cutting through all the noise out there. It almost feels like this kind of simplicity naturally leads to something else we all seem to crave from brands these days: authenticity. Does making things simple inherently build more trust with consumers?
I believe it absolutely does. Think about it. In a market where consumers are bombarded by estimates ranging from 4,000 to maybe even 10,000 ads per day.
Wow, that many.
It's staggering. Breaking through that level of noise and fostering genuine engagement requires something more than just clever marketing slogans. Studies consistently show that a massive 86% of consumers cite authenticity as a key factor when they're choosing which brands to support.
86%. That's huge.
It is. And humanizing a brand, making it feel authentic, means showing its true self, not just some polished, faceless corporate entity that's only trying to sell you something.
So how does a brand do that? How do they show that true self?
Well, it involves a few key things. It's about sharing your values, what you genuinely stand for as a company, beyond just profits. Think of Ben & Jerry's and their long-standing commitment to social causes, or Patagonia's radical transparency about sustainability and responsible manufacturing.
Right, those feel genuine.
They do, because they're not just marketing campaigns. They seem embedded in the brand's identity. It also means showing the people behind the brand, featuring team members on your website or social media, putting real human faces to the company name.
Makes it less corporate.
Exactly. And perhaps most powerfully, it means telling your story. People connect with people, right? Not abstract corporations. Sharing your origin story, the struggles you face, the triumphs you achieve, these narratives make your brand relatable and unique. Warby Parker, for example, built its entire brand around that simple origin story of its founders being frustrated by how expensive prescription glasses were.
Yeah, I remember that story.
That genuine frustration, that quest for a better way, it resonated deeply with consumers. And stories, in fact, are incredibly powerful. Research suggests they are 22 times more memorable than just dry facts or statistics because they tap directly into our emotions. This emotional connection is what makes brands stick, what makes them distinctive in that sea of sameness we keep talking about.
That makes perfect sense. A consistent story, a consistent design language, it really does help build trust. But, in a world where seemingly every brand is trying to claim authenticity, how can you, as a listener, discern the real deal from just a clever marketing strategy? And what happens when brands get it wrong?
That's a great question, and it brings us back to consistency. It's not just about the story. It's about consistency in the design elements, too. Your logo, your color schemes, the typography you use across all platforms. This consistency reinforces a coherent brand image, which in turn builds trust and recognition over time.
Like the Apple example again.
Exactly. Look at Apple. They consistently innovate their products, yet they maintain that core minimalist design ethos. It makes their brand instantly recognizable and feel trustworthy, decade after decade. They don't just say they're about simplicity. Their products, their stores, their website, they embody simplicity.
Right.
Conversely, consumers today are incredibly savvy. They can spot a forced narrative or inauthentic marketing from a mile away. And those efforts often backfire spectacularly. Remember that controversial Pepsi ad with Kendall Jenner from 2017?
Oh, yeah. Vaguely. That didn't go over well, did it?
Not at all. It attempted to sort of co-opt social justice themes, but was widely criticized for trivializing serious issues and felt deeply inauthentic to many viewers. When a brand's actions don't align with its words, trust is broken, and it's incredibly difficult to rebuild.
So the stakes are high.
Very high. And the statistics really underscore this economic imperative. 81% of consumers say trust is a deciding factor in their purchase decisions. 90% find brand authenticity important. And get this, a significant 65% say they would stick with a trusted brand even after a bad experience.
Wow, that's powerful loyalty.
It is. This isn't just about generating good vibes. This trust translates directly into loyalty, repeat purchases, and fervent brand advocacy, people telling their friends about you. Research from firms like Bain & Company indicates that just a 5% increase in customer retention can boost profits by anywhere from 25% to a staggering 95%.
Okay, those are serious numbers.
They are. So investing in genuine brand authenticity through simplicity, transparency, and honest storytelling isn't just a nicety. It's an economic necessity. It fosters deeper connections, builds a loyal customer base, and significantly impacts the bottom line. It's a fundamental escape route from that commodity trap, from just being another gray car.
Okay, so we've seen how simplicity, intuitive design, and authenticity can offer this really vital escape from just adding more features or shouting louder than everyone else. It helps create genuine consumer engagement and makes a brand stand out. It's really about clarity and connection.
Exactly.
But that's just one pathway out of this sameness trap. And here's where, for me, it gets really interesting. If we're truly looking to design uniqueness back into the world, maybe the most brilliant, the most endlessly pested source of innovation is literally right outside our window. Nature itself.
Yes. Nature's R&D department.
Right. I actually had an experience related to this. We were stuck. For about 6 months, our team had been trying to design this new composite panel for an aerospace client. It needed to be lighter than anything on the market, but also impossibly strong.
The classic engineering challenge.
Yeah.
Light and strong.
Totally. And every simulation we ran followed the same old industrial logic. Perfect grids, right angles, brute force reinforcement. And every result was a failure, too heavy, too brittle, or way too expensive.
Frustrating.
Extremely. So one afternoon, totally defeated, I just left the lab and walked through this small botanical garden next to our campus. I was watching a bee move methodically across a flower, and then I found myself just staring at this little sliver of honeycomb left on a branch.
The honeycomb.
Yeah. And I saw that hexagonal pattern not as just some weird quirk of nature, but as a perfect engineering solution. A design refined over, 100 million years of evolution?
At least.
It wasn't a rigid grid. It was this elegant tessellation, this matrix of shared walls that distributed stress flawlessly, maximum strength, minimum material.
Nature's efficiency.
I literally ran back to the lab, not really with a solution, but with a new question. What if we stopped trying to impose our rigid order on the problem and started learning from nature's order instead? So we abandoned our rigid grids and started modeling hexagonal lattices. And, That was the breakthrough. Nature had already solved our problem. We were just too busy inside our own box to see it.
That experience with the honeycomb is a perfect illustration of biomimicry in action. Biomimicry at its core is exactly that. The practice of learning from and emulating nature's strategies, its blueprints, to solve human design challenges. And it's a critical paradigm for fostering radical innovation because it directly challenges the kind of homogenization we've been discussing. Nature rarely repeats itself with exact copies, right? It adapts, it optimizes, it diversifies constantly.
So it's inherently anti-sameness.
In many ways, yes. Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google's DeepMind, his team won a Nobel Prize for that groundbreaking work predicting protein structures with their AI AlphaFold 2.
Right, I remember hearing about that.
He points out that nature isn't random. He describes it as applied design, tested and retested endlessly over billions of years. He even calls it survival of the stablest, meaning that the forms and processes we observe in nature today are the most robust, the most efficient, the most resilient designs possible, refined through this unimaginably long evolutionary R&D process.
Survival of the stablest, I like that.
And nature intrinsically links form and function for survival. Natural selection is ruthless. It eliminates inefficient designs. What's truly remarkable is that nature achieves incredibly complex functions. Think about flight, or adhesion like a gecko's foot, or self-cleaning surfaces like a lotus leaf, often with very limited materials, fairly simple chemistry, and usually without high heat sources or massive amounts of electricity.
Constraints we often don't have or ignore.
Precisely. This makes nature this vast open-source library of optimized solutions that our modern technologies often struggle to match, partly because we're often trying to force our own, less refined industrial logic onto problems nature solved eons ago.
So it's not just about looking at a bird and saying, okay, let's make a plane that looks kind of like that. It's much deeper. It's about understanding the underlying principles of nature's genius and then translating them into entirely new innovations for our own needs. That sounds way more sophisticated.
It is. It's about understanding the why behind nature's designs, not just copying the what. And we see this in countless incredible examples, moving way beyond just aesthetics. Take spider silk, for instance. It's famously one of the strongest and lightest materials known.
Right, stronger than steel by weight, I think.
Something like that, yes. The company Spintex actually mimicked how a spider creates silk from a liquid gel inside its body at room temperature, without harsh chemicals or extreme heat. The result? They can produce a synthetic silk thread that is 1,000 times more energy efficient to make than typical plastic fibers like nylon, and the only byproduct is water.
1,000 times more efficient. That's game-changing.
Imagine the sustainable impact of that kind of material innovation across industries like textiles or even medicine. Or consider the pitcher plant, which is known for its super slippery inner surface that makes insects slide down into its trap.
Okay. Where's this going? Well, a company called Spotless Materials developed a coating inspired by this plant. It repels liquids, sludge, even bacteria, drastically reducing the need for water and cleaning chemicals on surfaces like toilets, medical devices, maybe even inside pipes.
That's clever, using nature's non-stick tech.
Exactly. And if you're looking for sheer strength and toughness, Helicoid Industries looked at the mantis shrimp. This little creature has these incredibly powerful clubs it uses to smash open shells.
They punch incredibly fast, right? Faster than a .22 caliber bullet, delivering immense force without shattering their own club. Helicoid studied the internal spiral architecture of that club and applied it to create composite materials that are lighter, stronger, and much more impact resistant than conventional ones. They're using it for everything from body armor to lighter aircraft parts, cutting down on raw material use and production costs while significantly enhancing performance.
Wow.
Even some classic innovations trace back to biomimicry. The Wright brothers, before their first flight, meticulously observed how birds flexed their wingtips to control their movement in the air. They mimicked this wing warping principle in their aircraft design, which directly evolved into modern aircraft ailerons.
So learning from bird flight control.
Absolutely. And going way back in the late 1700s, Henry Cavendish was studying the electric jolts produced by a torpedo fish, an electric ray. His experiments trying to replicate that effect led him to discover the fundamental principles of electricity.
From a fish.
From a fish. And for a truly high-performance modern example, the McLaren P1 hypercar, an incredible machine. Its engineers designed the car's air induction system by directly copying the streamlined scales of a sailfish. This allowed them to increase airflow into the engine by nearly 20%, crucial for achieving its immense 900 horsepower from its hybrid engine. These aren't just, aesthetic nods to nature. They are deep, fundamental engineering solutions inspired by millions of years of natural R&D.
That's truly remarkable. It really underscores how nature has already solved so many of the engineering challenges we still grapple with, often with incredible elegance and efficiency. It completely challenges that idea that efficiency must sacrifice uniqueness, doesn't it? Nature seems to prove you can have both.
It absolutely does. Biomimicry pushes technical boundaries in ways that traditional, often siloed industrialized engineering approaches cannot, precisely because nature has optimized for performance under constraints that are often far more stringent than the ones we impose on ourselves. Consider lightweight design, for example. Nature is the undisputed master of achieving strength with minimal mass.
Like bones or shells.
Yeah, exactly. Our own human bones, with their porous, lattice-like internal structure, are about 10 times stronger than concrete, pound for pound, yet remarkably light. This very principle inspired Maurice Koechlin when he was working on the design for the Eiffel Tower.
Really? The Eiffel Tower?
Yes. He explicitly mimicked the structure of the human femur bone, particularly how it flares out at the top to distribute compressive stresses. This allowed the tower to achieve its height and strength with a minimal amount of iron. It's famously lighter than the cylinder of air that contains it. And it remained the tallest human-made structure in the world for over 40 years, a radical breakthrough at the time, enabled by learning from bone structure. Much like centuries earlier, the Gothic arches of the 12th century replaced the heavy, rounded Romanesque vaults. Those pointed arches allowed architects to build much taller, lighter cathedrals with huge stained glass windows, creating soaring, light-filled spaces again, optimizing for lightweight structural design to break free from previous limitations.
It's fascinating how these principles echo through history.
It is. And biomimicry can also revolutionize user experience in really surprising ways, extending beyond just making things strong or light into how we interact with objects. A company called Woodoo, for instance, has developed a process to make wood translucent. They call it transparent wood.
Transparent wood? How does that work?
They remove the lignin, which gives wood its color and opacity, and replace it with a polymer. The resulting material can hide screens within seemingly solid wood surfaces, and it's compatible with tactile feedback systems. Imagine luminous buttons appearing only when needed right through the wood trim in your car.
Whoa.
Or a home automation screen seamlessly integrated into your wooden furniture, completely invisible until you choose to interact with it. This could be a game changer for interior design and interactive products, creating a really distinct, elegant user experience that feels completely integrated with its environment, escaping the usual plastic and glass screens.
That sounds like science fiction.
It's becoming reality. Then there are structural colors. Have you ever wondered how some of the most vibrant colors in nature, like the iridescent blue of a morpho butterfly's wings or a peacock's feathers, are so intense and almost seem to shimmer?
Yeah, they don't look like normal pigment.
They're not. They come from complex optical interference caused by the microscopic physical structure of their scales or feathers. The structure itself manipulates light waves to produce color without any pigment molecules at all. Companies like Cypress Materials are now replicating this natural phenomenon. They can create paints and coatings that produce specific colors, not just blue, but a whole spectrum, without using any chemical dyes or pigments, relying solely on nanostructure.
So the color comes from the shape of the surface.
Essentially, yes.
I agree.
Tiny physical structures interacting with light. This offers incredibly vibrant, non-fading, and much more ecological design options, creating truly unique aesthetics without resorting to potentially harmful traditional dyes. Another escape from convention.
This feels like it's moving beyond just mimicking a specific thing, like a butterfly wing, and more towards mimicking nature's process of generating solutions. Which I guess brings us to generative design. That sounds like it's taking this inspiration to a whole new level, almost like handing the design problem over to a digital version of natural selection.
That's an excellent way to put it. Generative design is an incredibly powerful approach where designs aren't drawn by a human in the traditional sense, but are created by algorithms based on a set of rules and constraints. Think about drawing intricate rosettes with a compass, precise, repeatable rules generating complex shapes.
Okay.
Computers can do this on a massive scale. Designers can set specific parameters like the material to be used, maximum weight limits, where the stress points will be, and the software can automatically generate thousands, even millions, of potential design variations that meet those criteria.
Wow, thousands of options.
And then Combined with advanced simulations that test for mechanical performance, airflow, or other factors, you can computationally test all these generated shapes and select the ones that are the most resistant, the most efficient, or the most lightweight. This iterative, highly adaptive approach directly mirrors nature's evolutionary process of trial and error, but compressed into hours or days on a computer.
So it's like accelerated evolution for design.
Exactly. And biomimicry plays two main roles here. First, nature provides heuristics, essentially, rules of thumb or guiding principles for the design algorithms. For example, the branching patterns of trees are highly optimized to distribute weight and withstand wind forces while maximizing sun exposure for leaves. This principle inspired the design of the intricate, tree-like pillars supporting the roof of Stuttgart Airport in Germany. They allow a massive sweeping canopy to be held up by a remarkably small, elegant footprint. It's about translating natural efficiency into architectural beauty and structural integrity.
Using tree logic for building supports. Clever.
Very. Second, and perhaps more abstractly, nature inspires the bio-inspired algorithms themselves. These algorithms explore the design space, all the possible solutions intelligently, often mimicking processes like evolution or swarm intelligence to quickly find highly effective solutions, much like natural selection refined species over millennia. A truly fascinating application of this is the story behind those porous partitions designed by Airbus for their A320 aircraft.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Partitions on a plane.
Yeah, the walls separating the passenger cabin from the galley, for instance. They needed these partitions to be both incredibly light to save fuel, but also extremely strong to meet safety regulations far beyond what traditional manufacturing methods could easily achieve.
The light and strong problem again.
Always. So they turned to generative design. The initial mesh of straight lines connecting load points in their design software was actually inspired by the foraging patterns of Physarum polycephalum.
Physarum poly what?
Polycephalum. It's often called the blob or slime mold. It's this brainless, single-celled organism, but it's known for creating incredibly optimized and resilient networks between food sources, essentially finding the shortest, most efficient path.
A brainless blob-inspired aircraft design.
It did. By mimicking the blob's ability to connect points with the smallest possible set of lines, the algorithm generated a highly efficient base structure. Then, taking another cue from nature, those lines themselves were made porous, structured internally much like bone, to maximize the strength-to-weight ratio.
Bone structure and slime mold logic.
Exactly, a combination of bio-inspired principles. The result was a 30-kilogram weight reduction per partition. That's a staggering 45% decrease compared to the previous design. Across their entire A320 fleet, this single innovation, born from generative design and biomimicry, leads to annual CO2 savings estimated at 465,000 tons.
That is absolutely incredible. 30 kilos per part.
It's a perfect example of how combining nature's processes and structures with advanced computational power leads to massively efficient, sustainable, and utterly original industrial designs that would likely be impossible to conceive through conventional human-led design processes alone.
So it really drives home that biomimicry isn't just some niche field for biologists. It's proving essential for creating efficient, ecological, and truly original designs. It opens up these disruptive possibilities across aesthetics, how we interact with things, basic functionality. It really challenges that notion that efficiency must sacrifice uniqueness, and shows how you can gain a serious competitive edge by looking to the most unexpected, oldest source of innovation there is. Okay, so we've explored the profound power of simplicity and the, frankly, mind-blowing genius of nature as these clear pathways out of the sameness trap. Now, let's turn to our third guideline, which is maybe the most subtle, but I find it incredibly powerful. It's the magic of what's not present. It's about how sometimes what you don't see or hear can speak louder or make something far more unique than anything else. It's almost like a magic trick in design. And thinking about this brings to mind another personal story, actually. I had this consultant come in, laying out the numbers really bluntly. "You need to automate," he'd said, gesturing around my workshop. "Use pre-cut lumber, standardized joinery. Your competitors can assemble a chair in 2 hours. Yours takes 2 weeks. The market rewards efficiency, not sentiment."
Ouch. Harsh reality check.
Totally. His words just haunted me. I could see the logic, of course. I could feel the financial pressure mounting, the temptation to streamline everything, to basically sand down the very things that made my work mine. It was immense.
The lure of the efficient path.
Yeah. That night, I was standing alone in the shop, the air thick with the scent of walnut and linseed oil. I ran my hand over this half-finished dovetail joint. It's interlocking grain, just a testament to patience, to time. I picked up my grandfather's old hand plane, its weight feeling familiar and true in my hand. And I realized I had a choice. I could follow the market, automate, become another faceless brand, my soul basically planed away for profit, or I could hold my ground. I chose the grain. I chose the imperfections that told the story, the time invested.
A brave choice, commercially speaking.
The next month was hard, really hard. But then a client came to the shop. She didn't ask about the price first thing. She just ran her hand over a finished table and said, "You can feel the time in it." And in that moment, I knew I hadn't just built a piece of furniture. I'd built a reason for my work to exist in a world drowning in sameness. That feeling, that connection, that was a competitive advantage no machine could ever replicate.
Your story beautifully illustrates this third guideline. The idea of removing something common or expected to make something entirely unique. It really is the magic of absence, where what isn't there defines what is there, often more powerfully than what is present.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Think about the ancient Cueva de las Manos, the Cave of Hands, down in Argentina. It dates back thousands of years, from around 7300 BC to 700 AD. The artists there didn't draw hands. Instead, they placed their hands on the cave wall and sprayed paint or pigment around them, creating these striking negative images.
So you see the outline, the space where the hand was.
Exactly. You're not seeing an image of a hand. You're seeing the absence of a hand defined by the pigment around it. It's a profound, incredibly efficient way to transform imagination into reality, creating this captivating visual through intentional omission. This teaches us something fundamental. Distinction can arise not just from adding more features or more complexity, but from intentionally removing the expected.
Yeah.
It offers a powerful counterpoint to homogenized design, leaving space for the viewer's mind to fill in, to engage differently.
Creating space for engagement through absence. I like that.
We see this principle beautifully at play in architecture too, particularly with the power of reflection as absence. Think about the famous courtyards of the Alhambra Palace in Granada, Spain. They utilize these large, still central pools as key design elements.
Right, the reflecting pools.
Those pools don't just reflect the intricate Moorish architecture. They magnify its aesthetic through their mirror-like surface. They create this incredible visual richness and a sense of grandeur without needing to lay a single extra stone. It's an amplification through absence, making the existing architecture feel grander, more infinite, almost doubled. This even applies to architectural legends, like the mythical Black Taj Mahal.
I've heard of that. Was it ever found?
No physical structure was ever found. But historians believe the legend might have originated from the darkened mirror image of the white Taj Mahal appearing in a large reflecting pool that was planned for a garden complex across the river. So the powerful idea of what isn't physically built but is implied or reflected the absence is what captivates the imagination.
So it's about creating something distinctive by subtraction, by taking away what we normally expect to be there. Can you give us some more practical, maybe modern examples of this design by omission and how it truly creates a unique impact in products we actually use every day?
Absolutely. The most striking applications of this principle in modern design often involve making something entirely unique, even category-defining, by simply removing a core component that was previously considered essential. Take the Dyson Air Multiplier fan, which they launched back in 2009.
The bladeless fan, yeah, those look wild.
Exactly. Fans had blades. That was just a given, right? But Dyson removed them entirely. This radical omission transformed a mundane, often ugly household object into something almost sculptural. It gave it this sleek iMac vibe, as some reviewers noted at the time. It wasn't just a fan anymore, it was a conversation piece, instantly distinct from every other fan on the market precisely because of what it lacked. It created immediate visual intrigue and a completely novel user experience, just smooth airflow.
A huge differentiator just by removing the obvious part.
A huge differentiator. And then, arguably the most impactful example, Apple's touchscreen smartphone. Before the iPhone, cell phones were largely defined by their physical number, pads, and buttons. Think of those old Nokia brick phones or BlackBerry devices with the tiny keyboards.
Yeah, clicky buttons everywhere.
Apple's radical, revolutionary decision was to remove all those physical buttons from the front face. This created the buttonless smartphone and ushered in a complete revolution in user interface design. It was the profound absence of those expected buttons that created something so new, so sleek, and so fundamentally distinct that it immediately differentiated the iPhone from every other phone on the planet. It compelled users to interact in an entirely new direct way with the screen itself, creating a blank canvas for software innovation.
Right, the lack of buttons was the feature.
In many ways, yes. However, it's important to acknowledge a kind of counterpoint here. Even design principles like minimalism, which often embrace this idea of absence or reduction, can paradoxically fall into their own sameness track if they're not careful.
How so? Minimalism seems like the opposite of sameness.
Well, there's a growing critique of what some commentators call self-conscious minimalism. This is where the aesthetic becomes less about perfect intentional execution and maybe more about simply not making any mistakes, becoming a safe, risk-averse choice that ultimately ends up feeling kind of boring or generic. Some argue it can even have an ostentatiousness at its heart, where its supposed timeless appeal is really just a justification for expensive branding and advertising. It becomes a sort of premium mediocrity, where consumption is about signaling upward mobility without necessarily offering true substance or unique value.
So minimalism is just another status symbol, not a design philosophy.
Potentially, yes. Or it can be seen as a bloodless style, as one critic put it, emerging from a stable but perhaps uninspiring period. Some even theorize that the rise of minimalism was partly a coping mechanism for the intense sensory overload of hypercapitalism, a desire to just quiet things down. The crucial insight here isn't that simplicity or reduction is inherently bad. It's that superficial simplicity, when it's just an aesthetic trend rather than a deep principle, can become its own form of homogenization. The goal isn't just to strip things away randomly. It's to reveal essential value, create focus, and ensure the absence isn't just emptiness, but intentional clarity that resonates deeply and uniquely.
That's a really important distinction. Intentionality matters.
It does. We've even seen brands that initially built their identity on a very simple, minimally stocked inventory, aiming to disrupt the market by offering fewer, more curated choices like Everlane, for example. They started with that radical transparency and simple basics.
Right, basics done well.
But over time, even they significantly expanded their offerings, adding far more colors, cuts, styles, and options. In doing so, they arguably diluted their initial distinctiveness and started to feel more akin to a mass-market retailer like Old Navy or Gap, losing some of that core identity that made them unique in the first place. This highlights the constant challenge for brands, maintaining distinctiveness even when starting with a powerful principle like minimalism. Aesthetically, pure visual minimalism might cycle out for more ornate styles, as trends often do. But the underlying philosophy of seeking versatility over mere extravagance, of intentional reduction, might well endure as a lifestyle choice. But true originality, whether achieved through simplicity, biomimicry, or this powerful design by omission, offers a sustainable competitive advantage. It fosters genuine consumer engagement because it's built on substance, not just surface. It's about being intentional with what you don't include, thereby creating unique value in the void.
Okay, that's a fascinating and crucial point, that even these powerful design principles like minimalism can fall prey to the sameness trap if they're not applied with real intentionality and originality. So we've covered this subtle trap of sameness, and we've explored these three really powerful pathways: simplicity, nature, absence, to design our way out of the noise. But let's get down to brass tacks now. What's the long-term economic cost of all this homogenization, all this sameness, and how do companies ensure that investing in true originality, in being different, actually pays off on the bottom line? What's the real economic imperative here?
Well, your story about the workshop, the consultant, and the dovetail joint, that perfectly encapsulates the core economic challenge that results from widespread homogenization. It's the problem of commoditization.
Becoming just a commodity, yeah.
Exactly. When products lack unique perceived value, when they become just another gray SUV in the driveway, or another generic chair assembled in 2 hours, consumers really have no compelling reason to choose one over another beyond price. This inevitably leads to a race to the bottom, companies competing solely on price, which erodes profit margins, stifles investment in real innovation, and ultimately makes the market less interesting for everyone.
And harder to survive in for businesses.
Absolutely. And this challenge is further exacerbated, quite significantly, by the widespread rise of retailer house brands. Think about Trader Joe's or Walgreens or Costco's Kirkland Signature. These retailers now sell thousands of products under their own labels, directly competing with established national brands, often purely on price. If your branded coffee tastes pretty much exactly like the store brand sitting next to it, why would a consumer pay 30% more?
Good point. The value proposition gets blurry.
It gets very blurry. So for established brands to avoid becoming mere commodities, they must strategically identify, articulate, and deliver on their unique value. They have to create an almost irrational loyalty. a connection that defies purely logical, price-based decision-making. They have to fundamentally answer that question you grappled with in your workshop. What is truly great, truly different, truly valuable about what we offer that would make people want to pick us over a cheaper, maybe functionally similar, generic alternative? This isn't just about gaining market share. In today's crowded marketplace, it's often about existential survival.
Okay, so they need a compelling reason to exist beyond just being there. How do they find and build that?
It requires several strategic shifts, often moving beyond just the product itself. First, it demands a deep understanding of consumer behavior, obtained by actively asking customers through surveys, interviews, data analysis, why they choose your brand. What specific value, emotion, or experience resonates most strongly with them. You need to find your true differentiators in the eyes of your customers.
Listen to the people buying your stuff. Makes sense.
Second, it means consciously offering something unique that others simply cannot easily replicate. This could be through highly tailored experiences, like personalized subscription services or deep product customization options that let users feel a sense of co-creation. Think about the Nike and Apple fitness partnership we discussed earlier, creating joint services like the Apple Watch Nike plus Fifi. That offered something distinctive and seamlessly integrated that neither company could easily provide alone, demonstrating how unique cross-brand collaborations can generate entirely new value propositions.
So finding unique partnerships or experiences.
Exactly. Or brands can establish other kinds of partnerships to expand retail visibility in unique ways, like creating branded store-within-a-store concepts inside larger retailers, or leveraging buy online, pick up in-store BOPS models, but adding extra value, like including exclusive samples or offering expert consultations during pickup. It's about adding layers of value beyond just the core product.
So it's about creating this undeniable value, this reason to exist beyond just function or price. In such a noisy, data-rich world, how do companies build that kind of unique, almost personal connection?
Crucially, it's about building stronger, more personal relationships through the intelligent and ethical use of first-party data. That's the data you collect directly from your customers with their consent, purchase history, website interactions, survey responses, loyalty program activity.
Data they give you willingly.
Right. This isn't about intrusive surveillance or buying third-party data lists. It's about responsibly using the information your customers share with you to create highly targeted, genuinely relevant messages and experiences. Done well, this drives engagement and loyalty because it makes the customer feel truly seen, understood, and valued, not just like another number.
Making the relationship feel more one-to-one.
Precisely. And beyond just improving advertising effectiveness, this deep understanding derived from first-party data can fundamentally transform a company's internal strategies. It can lead to more effective go-to-market plans, better inventory management, and even the development of entirely new, better products that are designed from the ground up with a profound understanding of what the customer actually values and needs, rather than just what's efficient to produce or what competitors are doing. This leveraging of insight, using data to build empathy and anticipate needs, is how brands build true, sustainable distinctiveness, moving far beyond just competing on price or generic features.
Okay, that ties it all together.
Ultimately, yes. The insights we've discussed today, the power of simplicity and intuitive design, the radical innovation potential of biomimicry, and even the subtle magic of absence or omission, they all converge on this economic point. Strategic investment in true originality, in creating meaningful distinctiveness, and in cultivating unique intellectual property that competitors can't easily copy. This provides a sustainable competitive advantage. It cultivates that almost irrational loyalty we talked about, the kind that defies conventional economic logic. It fosters deeper, more resilient connections with consumers, leading directly to increased sales, stronger brand equity, and more robust market positions, especially during tough economic times. In a world increasingly susceptible to industrialized sameness, originality isn't a luxury expense. It's the only truly sustainable moat against that relentless race to the bottom. It's the fundamental difference between being just another gray car in the parking lot and being truly unforgettable. #HadAtroph.
Wow. We've certainly journeyed quite a distance today from those ubiquitous gray SUVs through the intricacies of spider silk and slime mold algorithms, all the way to the quiet power of the hand-planed dovetail joint. We've explored the subtle trap of sameness, looked at concrete pathways to design out the noise, and really discovered how embracing originality isn't just some artistic choice, but a fundamental economic imperative for survival and success.
Absolutely. Whether it's the elegant clarity of a truly simple, intuitive interface, the breathtaking efficiency borrowed from nature's billions of years of R&D, or the surprising resonant impact of what you consciously choose to leave out. These aren't just abstract design principles. They are tangible strategic pathways for brands, creators, anyone really, to not just stand out, but to thrive beyond that gray haze of homogenization.
It feels like a call to be more intentional, more observant, maybe even a bit braver in our choices.
I think that's right. If we connect all this back to the bigger picture, it becomes crystal clear that in a world increasingly defaulting to industrialized sameness, the brands, the creators, the companies who strategically invest in genuine originality, in meaningful distinctiveness, and in building unique intellectual property, they won't just gain a sustainable competitive advantage. They'll forge deeper, more resilient, more meaningful connections with their audience, with you.
So it's by getting back to fundamentals.
It really is. It's about a return to core principles, thoughtful, human-centered design that anticipates needs, learning humbly from the most refined, most successful design system on Earth, which is nature, and having the courage sometimes to remove the expected, to create value through absence. When you truly manage to embrace beauty, originality, and efficiency together, not seeing them as trade-offs, but as interconnected goals, you create something that doesn't just sell for a season, but something that truly captivates and endures.
A powerful thought to end on. This has been The Deep Dive. Thank you so much for joining us.